You're grinding every day. Long hours, no backup, no accountability. That ends now. The Empower Solopreneur Mastermind gives you one simple advantage: a weekly power session that turns isolation into domination. Every Friday morning on Zoom, you'll get real coaching and real feedback to make real moves. Join a group of driven professionals in a program designed for solopreneurs and people working at home. Stop getting stuck. Start scaling. Seats are limited. Lock in yours today at modernobserver.com/empower-mastermind.
Hello, and welcome to the Success Showcase, the podcast that helps you succeed in your business life and career. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin from the Modern Observer Group, and with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
I'm doing wonderful. We are actually recording this on what is one of the least productive days of the year. And it is the first Monday after the time change, going into daylight savings time. And it is widely known that this is actually one of the least productive days of the year. The other two actually being when we switch back from daylight savings time and the Monday following the Super Bowl, of all things. So
Very, very interesting. Yeah, I just woke up from my nap. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, it's really, as you've heard us, if you've been listening to podcasts before, we've had a long, cold winter up here in the Northeast. And today is just a brilliant sunny day, and it's almost 60 degrees outside, and the snow is melting, and everything is really looking springy. We can see our lawns again here in Connecticut, probably not in Rhode Island where they got all that snow 2 weeks ago, but it's really, really neat to be getting back into the season.
It is. I mean, we've had such a cold winter, and all over the country, weather's been crazy. It is great to actually see signs of spring.
Yep.
So yeah, so we've jumped into daylight savings time, and as I said, the Monday after we make the time switch is actually one of the least productive days of the year. And it's because your rhythms are all thrown off by that 1 hour change. And you wouldn't think it would have such a major impact, but it really does. And it actually highlights something that we're going to be talking about, is that most success is not the result of one big decision. It's the result of a lot of little decisions. And they're done over and over again, and they build into habits. So why is this one of the least productive days? Because since your body clock is thrown out of whack, so are your habits. You're just a little off your game. Now, fortunately, there's a lot of people that, by this afternoon, they're back to normal. By tomorrow, they're certainly back to normal. And even the slowest folks to respond are back to normal in a few days. And that's because of how habits work. You don't think about your habits, you just do them because they've been so ingrained in you that they happen automatically, like breathing. Well, today we're going to talk about how you can create habits more consciously, how you can change habits, and what the power of habit really is. And it does start with the fact that those small repeated actions have, I'm going to use the phrase compound interest, because each one builds on the last. When you put your money in a bank account and you're getting 3.5% interest, yes, you get 3.5% interest on that first dollar. And then you get 3.5% interest on that dollar plus the interest you got on that dollar. And that's how it grows. habits work the same way. So, we're going to talk about how you can grow by building your habits.
Yeah, it all starts, with planning and really, again, self-analysis, identifying the different habits that you might want to change. And obviously, we just started meteorological spring, which that's a new thing too. So it's a great time to do that. Obviously, with more daylight and so on and so forth. One of the things you might want to get into if you've been avoiding doing something physically fit and so on and so forth. Sun doesn't set till 7 o'clock now, so you can take a walk after dinner or something like that. There's a lot of different things that you can do just based upon what's out there. But obviously, if your physical well-being is part of it, this is a great time of year to pick something up and just start doing it. And it's as easy as just going out and taking a 10-15 minute walk every day.
It is. And, when people start to try to create habits, one of the biggest mistakes they made is trying to make a massive change all at once. And our minds don't want to do that. So, as you just said, just take a 10 to 15-minute walk. Everybody can do that. You're not going to start a habit by, I'm going to spend an hour a day weightlifting every day. That's going to last 2 or 3 days, and then you're going to start faltering. You need to make small changes. And in fact, the optimum is to basically improve 1% a day. 1% is pretty small. But again, if you do that day after day, it accumulates like the compound interest does. And that accumulates into big results over time. You know, think of habits as the compound interest of self-improvement. You do it a little at a time, and your progress may feel slow, but the results come after repeating it over and over and over. And I'm going to delve into a little science of what a habit is as far as your body is concerned. This goes into neurology. And we've talked about this before on the podcast. Every time you have a thought, your brain creates a neural pathway. The more often you have that thought or do an action, the more times neurons flow along that pathway. And it's like walking across a lawn. If you walk across a lawn once, you look back, the grass has popped back up. There's no sign that you were actually there. If you walk over a lawn on the same path over and over again, it starts to wear the grass down. And if you do it every day over and over again, the grass on that part of the lawn is going to die and you're going to have a path. The brain essentially works the same way, except it's creation, not killing. The more your neuron travels along the path, the easier it becomes to do so. And once you do it over and over again, that neuron starts firing automatically when it's triggered, and that becomes a habit. So start small. Do a little improvement, a little change. I mean, it's not even necessarily an improvement. It could just be something you want to do differently. For example, putting your car keys in the same spot when you come home every day. This way, when you're running out the house the next morning, you don't have to think about where did you put your car keys.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, I always used the AI to look things up and came up bingo with the 4 laws of behavior change. And it's basically making it obvious, easy, attractive, and satisfying. So making it obvious is just defining a clear plan, like a time and a location, and basically do habit stacking, linking a new habit to a current one. So basically, if you come home and you throw your car keys on the table and you really want to find them the next time, put them on the counter or something like that next to the door where you're going out the door. And in the same time, if you want to stack another habit on that, if there's other things that you do before you go out, the shopping list and so on and so forth, just have a little particular location for all that stuff. And all of a sudden it's instant organization. Making it easy. Obviously, we talk about keeping it simple. So basically making it easy says starting with the 2-minute rule. which says scaling down the new habits to 2 minutes or less just to make sure that you actually start. Number 3 is making it attractive. So basically, pair your action with something that you really, really want to do. Just identify those things. Number 4 is making it satisfying. And we talk about this all the time, that once you start changing things, reward yourself, celebrate yourself. Maybe have a little ice cream or something like that. And then track progress. And this one interested me. It says use tools like the paperclip strategy to track daily streaks and so on and so forth, and avoid breaking the chain. And what the paperclip strategy is like taking a cup and putting a bunch of paper clips in one cup and having an empty cup on the other side. And every time you achieve something, you switch cups. And all of a sudden, that empty cup is progress, and the other one basically is full and satisfaction. So, I mean, there's all kind of gimmicks that you can use, but the bottom line is it's not hard to do. You just got to get started.
Yeah, the process of the paperclip method is very similar to a lot of other methods. The idea is that you don't want to break your streak. So if it's something you want to be doing every day, take out a monthly calendar and day one, do the habit and, you know, cross that day off. And then the next day, you cross the day off when you do the habit. And after a few days, you've got that streak going and you don't want to break the streak. So it's encouragement to keep going. And that's really the key, is to keep going, because progress often feels very slow because results don't come quickly when you're making small changes. And in fact, James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits, calls this one time period the valley of disappointment. And it's when you're doing the habit day after day, but you're not seeing the results. And that's when most people tend to quit, is in what James Clear calls the valley of disappointment, because you don't realize how much progress you're making. And I can actually give an example from my own life. For the past several years, I have been working out regularly. And for the most part, you know, haven't seen many changes in weight, haven't seen, a lot of changes in the way I look, but I kept going because primarily my motivation wasn't actually what I looked like or my weight. It was just to stay healthy. Well, as we said earlier, we've been talking a lot over the past few weeks about the cold and snow, and I went out to shovel snow. And I mean physically shovel, not with a snowblower, with an old-fashioned shovel that I had to do. And as I was shoveling, I realized how much stronger I'd gotten. And my son, who's 21, actually commented to my wife. She's because she had complimented him on how much he was doing, and he actually said, "Yeah, I'm doing it, but I'm just trying to keep up with dad."
Yeah, that's pretty neat. I mean, I started exercising a while ago, and I've been doing it pretty steadily for the last 10 years. And I think I mentioned before, I'm in better shape now than I was in my 50s, and I'm going to be 72 in June. And we have had a little bit of snow to shovel this winter.
Yes, we have.
And basically, it's been really a piece of cake, even though we've had a lot compared to what it was before, just because for a half an hour a day, I do some walking and I do a little bit of stuff with weights, not really heavy stuff or anything like that, but just to get the old blood flowing and breathing and so on and so forth. And then sometimes I do that in the morning for half an hour and take another walk in the afternoon. And it's kept me in great shape. I mean, my weight is way down from where it was 10 years ago, and it's just amazing. And it's second nature to do it. Plus, I really enjoy it. I mean, one of the things about it, if you are going to be getting into doing walking and so on and so forth, psychologically, the best thing to do is just really appreciate everything around you. So, I mean, it's this time of year with spring, everything popping out and birds coming around and so on and so forth, and the sky being beautiful today. Just go out there and be awed with everything that's around you, because, I mean, we're all part of a beautiful creation. So, I mean, the best thing to do is to just look at the positivity in things. And one of the things about that I read here is the things about breaking bad habits. And step number 1 is inverting the rules. And what that talks about is making the bad habit invisible by removing triggers, unattractive by focusing on the downsides of your bad habit, converting the rules difficult, increasing friction and effort and so on, and unsatisfying. Basically, you make the invisible things, the fact that your bad habits are unattractive, difficult, and unsatisfying. And what you're going to create on that is you're going to remove the triggers, focus on the upsides of things, and you'll create accountability in yourself. And so identifying those triggers is basically understanding what sets it off in you, what sets off that bad behavior. And then step number 3 in breaking bad habits is not just replacing it today, but eliminating it. That's the goal. Swap the bad habit for a healthier alternative that serves the same purpose. And then changing your environment obviously helps out a lot too. So you talked last week about rearranging your surroundings from time to time to
Yeah.
make things interesting and so on and so forth. There's a lot of different things you can do, but basically there's a 180 to everything. And that's what breaking the bad habits is all about. Identifying what the 180 is, identifying what's triggering off the bad habit in the first place, and just replacing them with the 180 positive habit.
And that's so true. And in fact, it gets to the core of what a habit really is, because habits break down into four stages. It's the cue, or what you called the trigger, the craving it creates, the response that you do, and then the reward. And again, a bad habit has the same 4 sets. And the perfect example is a phone notification. You know, it starts with that beep from your phone or the buzz that tells you there's a notification on your phone. That's the cue, and it triggers your curiosity. So to sate your curiosity, you check the phone. And when you do that, you actually get a dopamine reward. And it's the same thing with social media. They're actually created to take advantage of making habits. You get a dopamine reward when you get a notification that somebody liked your post. It triggers dopamine when people comment on your posts. So people actually do get addicted to that and keep checking over and over again to see, did anybody say anything about my post? Did anybody like my post? Because you get that dopamine reward. So when you understand what the trigger or the cue is and what the craving is, then you can start to change things, because you want to make sure either 1, the trigger doesn't happen, or 2, you've got another way that's not a bad habit to obtain the same reward, because your brain seeks rewards. And the fact of the matter is, every habit starts with a trigger. Every brain is hardwired to want to be rewarded, and habits become automatic through repetition. So, how many times have you had where you've got your phone in your pocket, but you could swear that there's a notification going on, or it's ringing, it's buzzing, or vibrating, and yet nothing is happening? And the reason that happens is because your brain is actually craving the reward of checking the phone, even if there's nothing there. So when you're building habits, you have to understand the 2 most important things to understand is what's the trigger and what's the reward. And once you figure that out, then you can start making changes to it. You can change the triggers. You can turn off notifications. You can set aside times that, if you do certain things, then you get to check social media and get the reward. Or you find other ways to get that dopamine rush. It could be accomplishing something. But again, what you really have to realize is that it takes time to create or break a habit. You know, they don't simply go away, or they don't simply form. It's about doing an action over and over, and it's the repetition that creates the habit out of it.
Yeah, one of the things that we do talk about it all the time. I mean, habits, a lot of you think people are out there are probably thinking about things that you actually do, but things that you actually do all start with thoughts. And to me, negative thoughts are the worst habit that we can get into. And there's a very, very simple trigger that triggers negative thoughts, and that's our own insecurities, our own inferiority complexes about different things. Why do you want to take a look at Facebook and see if somebody likes your post? Because you want to feel liked. Why do you want to do that? Because somebody else is getting more likes than I am, and so on and so forth. I mean, these things kind of build up, and that's not important at all, because the bottom line is that we have to accept that we all came from perfect creation, all the same, and so on. And once you look in the mirror and see that wonder of creation that was created from unconditional love, that's the most important thing. And realize that everybody else, again, I use my courtroom in your own mind scene again, everybody is in their courtroom and they're the only person in the courtroom. They are the judge, they are the accused, but there are no jurors there, because they're all in their own courtrooms too, no matter how popular they think they are and so on and so forth. So if you can start with one thing at a time, that's check your negative thoughts. If you can do that, that's a great start to any habit that you're trying to change, because a lot of times your biggest restriction is that you're going back to an automatic reset of negativity based upon your own insecurities.
Yes, and your thoughts are so important when you're creating habits, because a lot of habits are tied up in your identity, or specifically, your self identity. It's who do you think you are? And listen to how you talk about yourself. There's certain keys that will let you go, oh, wait a minute. And by changing your language, you can help change your habits. If you want to get into running, you don't say you're trying to win a marathon or run a marathon. You say you're trying to become a runner, or you are a runner. It's the same thing. It was found a lot in smokers when they would try to quit smoking. The reason most of them would go back is because they said, well, I'm a smoker. It's who I am. Well, it doesn't have to be who you are. I actually, a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with diabetes. And immediately, the terminology started to drive me crazy, because people would say, oh, you're diabetic. It's like, no, I have diabetes. It's something I have. It's not who I am. And my doctors actually credit that mindset with a big reason that I was able to get the diabetes under control so quickly. Because I didn't say, oh, I'm a diabetic, that's who I am. No, it's something I have and it's something I have to deal with. So your identity and who you believe you are is a major factor in creating real change in your habits and yourself. So you actually have to shift your identity to create lasting change. When somebody says that, oh, I'm a nail biter or I'm a procrastinator, they're pigeonholing themselves into that habit. And the fact is, none of us are anything that we don't decide to be. So instead of saying, oh, well, I put things off because I'm just a natural procrastinator. Well, no, you say you're a natural procrastinator because you put things off. If you stop putting them off, you're no longer a procrastinator. So figure out what identity your habits are reinforcing. And if it's a habit you want to change, figure out how you need to change that identity. You don't say, I'm trying to quit smoking. You say, I'm not a smoker. It's about who you are and who you wish to be. None of our habits really define us. We define our habits. And once you realize that, it actually does become easier to change them.
Yeah, I mean, I have talked often about the book, The Five Agreements, and basically what the Five Agreements are all about. It's from Toltec wisdom, which is basically reality, creation, all loving kindness that I just talked about, and everything that we have created in our own minds. So what the Five Agreements are is all about making the Five Agreements with yourself in your own mind. And it all starts with number one, just being your true self, not what other people think or anything else, but being your true self. Number two is don't take things personally, because again, everybody is going through the same problems that you are. Talk about the empty courtroom scene. Number three is don't make assumptions, because everybody is different. And if you make assumptions about that, that's just what you're creating in your own mind about people and what they're creating about you. Is it true? No. The truth is just that we are perfect creation. And then number four is just always do your best in the present moment. It's not always going to be the best, but if you are trying the best, and this is where the habits come in, that's going to make a big difference. And then number five, what ties it all together is just be skeptical, which means question everything, but learn to listen to other people and meet them in their places. I mean, understanding that we are all together as far as that goes, but it starts with that person in the mirror. And what building good habits is all about is making agreements with yourself to change things one by one. Again, it's be your true self. Don't take things personally, because everybody's messed up and everybody's thinking different about everything else. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong. It's just their own thoughts and assumptions. Again, I mean, you've heard the phrase that he who makes assumptions makes the first three letters out of themselves. And then just always do your best, question everything, but respect everybody. And if you have those things going for you with your own mind, agreements with your own mind, I highly recommend getting that. The four agreements and then the fifth agreement. It's by, I think, Don Miguel Ruiz. And this is just a great template for you to look at all the time. And if you can put these things into practice, they are going to help you with your habits in your life.
Yes. Before we wrap up, I want to go back a little bit to something we briefly mentioned early, which is habit stacking. And habit stacking is a great way to create new habits. And it follows a very simple formula. It's after I do name a habit, I will do name the new habit. So, as an example, after I pour my morning coffee, I will write my daily goals. And you start doing that because pouring your morning coffee is already a habit. This builds on it to create something new. After brushing my teeth, I will meditate for 1 minute. After sitting at my desk, I will review priorities. It's a very simple formula, but habit stacking is incredibly powerful. It works because your existing habits already have strong triggers. And your brain actually loves routines. It loves the repetitiveness. So when you're adding something to something your brain is already considering automatic, it makes it that much easier to build. And it can be, almost anything you want. You know, after I wash the dishes, I will put the dishes away. After I finish dinner, I will wash the table down. After I go for a walk, I will do some deep breathing. And they don't even have to necessarily be related. When I have my morning coffee, I will read. It's about taking the existing habit that you've already got and adding something to it that helps build you up, because you've already got habits that you don't even think about. If you add a stack to it, then you've still got those habits, but they start building on each other. So you're building new habits just from what you're already doing. And ideally, you really want to start habits so small that it's so easy. So, to use the example I just did, when I drink my morning coffee, I will read. Well, let's adapt that a little bit to I will read one page. Everybody can read one page. If you're looking to, build up physical fitness, um, when I wake up in the morning, I will do one push-up. Just about everybody can do one push-up. Whatever it is, you take that small step and you keep building on those small steps. So you do, one push-up for a week, and then the next week you do two push-ups, and then three, and then maybe you jump to five. And once you get into the rhythm and you've gotten it as a habit, you can start building on it to really take advantage. And again, what's really key to remember is progress doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. You have to be patient and not give up. So we are just about at the end of our time. Chip, what do you think the big takeaway is for our listeners this week?
Getting back to the 4 laws of behavior change, make it obvious, which is we talked about habit stacking, and I want to throw something in there. I mean, what you were just talking about is morning coffee and so on and so forth. We all have our routines. I'm coining a phrase right now calling re-routining. Basically, take what you're doing in the morning and kind of like list the different things together. And number 2 was making it easy. That's the 2-minute rule. So you talked about having coffee and doing a little bit of reading. Number 3, making it attractive, pairing it with what you need to do with what you want to do. So you could put a little bit of the exercise or something like that in there, and then making you satisfying, rewarding yourself for doing that. But obviously, if you take a look at your routines and you can pick it a little bit apart, because everybody starts with those things, I think that's a great way to start. So I'm glad that you brought that up at the end of this, because I think that that's a really, really good way to get going. Just examine your routines and see how you can tweak them a little bit to make them more productive for yourself.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway is that you're making small changes. You're not going to change your life overnight. You're not going to completely rearrange everything you do. You're making tiny changes that are easy to assimilate. And that's how you build the habits over time, step by step, breaking it down to just a little thing that you can do or a little thing you can stop doing and change your life simply by taking those small steps. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch every episode at xvadio.com, the Apple Podcast app, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Audible, Amazon Music, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. We'll see you then.